Good morning, afternoon, everyone. My name is Will Sarni, founder and CEO of Water Foundry. Thank you for joining us for this important discussion on stormwater data management, managing and analyzing the vast amount of data related to stormwater infrastructure is crucial for cities and utilities working to optimize systems, reduce flooding risks, and meet regulatory requirements. I'm really excited about today's conversation. I encourage you to be very interactive and put your questions in the Q&A box. Our panelists today are from Esri, City of Carlsbad, California, Bad Elf, and Bentley Systems, who represent leading technologies and expertise in GIS, asset management, and analytics solutions for stormwater systems, along with a leading utility focused on advanced data management solutions. With extreme weather events becoming more frequent, leveraging data to assess vulnerabilities and make informed decisions is more critical than ever. Before I continue with the introduction and move this along, I'd like to run a survey and find out a little bit about our attendees. So why don't we start that, and I'll continue on, and then we can check and see the results. There are several key factors driving increased interest and investment in stormwater management and data acquisition and analytics. It's the perfect storm, if you will, of aging infrastructure, increased urbanization, flooding damage, water quality mandates, and the need for cost savings, all impacted by climate change. So let's see how we're doing with the results here. Okay, let's see, mostly local government, state government, no one, federal government, academia, that's good. Some industry representatives and others. Okay, most are located in the US, no one in Canada. All right, which sector? Land, public administration, planning.
Ladies and gentlemen, it looks as if we've lost Will Sarni. I don't know what happened there. Just recapping the rest of the poll, looks like we have a lot of people from transportation, quite a lot from public works and utilities. And as far as the breakdown of the size of the cities and municipalities, it's pretty evenly split up. So I think what we'll go ahead and do is I'm going to, on Will's behalf, invite Brandi Rank from Esri to join us on screen. And Brandi, why don't you take over? Thank you.
So thanks for having me, everyone. My name is Brandi Rank, and I'm a product engineer with Esri. I'm on the solutions team, and my primary focus is to work on creating solutions for stormwater programs to be successful. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about what ArcGIS Solutions is for those of you who maybe aren't aware of them. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the solutions that we have already for you, and then I'll do a quick demo showing you how one of our solutions, stormwater data management, works. So a quick overview for ArcGIS Solutions. This is a portion of Esri that's really unique, and we create industry-specific solutions. So these are pre-configured maps and apps that are ready for you to use in many different areas of interest. We have a lot of local government on the call. We have a lot of solutions for you, not just stormwater. So they might be related to right-of-way or your infrastructure needs. Obviously, today, we're going to talk about stormwater. So what do we have already? Well, we have a couple foundational solutions. One is the utility network, and the other one is the data management solutions. I'm going to talk a little bit more about data management, and as I mentioned, you'll be able to see a quick demo to see how it actually looks. But those are going to provide you that data model, hit the ground running, ready to go. Some other solutions that are more key on certain workflows that are important to stormwater managers are a catch basin and outlet inspection solution. The newest one just released last week is the green infrastructure inspection solution. We've got you covered for a solution when you're doing your active construction site inspections. And then a piece that I know is important for you all running MS4 programs in particular is public engagement. So we do have an adopt a catch basin solution as well. I'm going to briefly go through them. You're going to see stormwater data management, but essentially what this solution does is really help you streamline the creation and management of your stormwater assets. So when you deploy and download our stormwater data management solution, you're going to get, think of it like a SaaS system almost. You're going to have all of these pieces ready to go, pre-configured, an ArcGIS Pro project. Symbols are set up. All your assets are included in the map. You can load your data. You can start creating data. We have applications ready for people who go out in the field and maybe GPS some of those assets. And then, of course, we're going to have some dashboards and other information products to help you get insight and visibility into your stormwater system. The catch basin and outlet inspections really geared towards one of those 6 minimum control measures, finding all your outfalls and inspecting them. So this solution is going to help jumpstart you getting those inspections planned, getting them assigned to people, and then having an inspector go out and perform those inspections on a mobile device. The green infrastructure inspection solution that just went out, again, this is going to streamline those inspections on green infrastructure so you can understand their conditions, but it's also going to help facilitate communication with private property owners. And many times they're responsible for the actual maintenance on that property, but you're responsible for reporting on that. Luckily, I'm speaking to a group of people who understand that concept. A lot of people not in the stormwater industry have a hard time wrapping their heads around that concept, but you'll be ready to go on day one with an easy to use inspection form, as well as an ArcGIS hub site, which is basically a website, and that's going to help facilitate your private property owners to create accounts and then to submit information regarding related to whatever your policy asks for. They can submit documents and information online. And then, of course, dashboards to go ahead and manage that and look at the progress of your program. You all need to conduct inspections throughout the life cycle of a construction site. And so this solution is really to help you conduct those inspections for your erosion and sediment control measures. We've got a field map set up with an inspection form. One of the really key things I want to point out about this solution is, as an inspector, I fill out my inspection form. And when I hit submit, it's going to trigger a process to run, and I'm going to receive a report into my inbox. So before I even leave the site, I can provide that report to the site operator, have a conversation with them, and I'm reducing that time going back to the office. And that report does include photos. So that's pretty exciting as well. The Adopt a Catch Basin, as I mentioned, that is really geared towards engaging the public and inviting them to adopt a catch basin. And using different GIS, using different Esri products in ArcGIS Online, you're able to facilitate that management of people adopting, choosing one that hasn't been adopted. You can send out messages to say, hey, there's a storm coming, great time to clean out your catch basin, and get the public involved in your program. I wanted to point out that these are not just isolated solutions. So if you were to deploy and download the stormwater data management solution, and you loaded your data and you were managing your assets and collecting them in the field, if you then decided to deploy, for example, catch basin and outlet inspections, you don't have to reload data or separate out your data and manage them separately. It actually is going to see that feature layer already in your enterprise or your portal, your ArcGIS Online portal, and it will automatically connect to it, and you'll be ready to go to inspect on those assets immediately. So just want to throw that idea out there. Let's go into a quick demo. I'm going to show you stormwater data management briefly. So when you get stormwater data management, as I mentioned, you do get an ArcGIS Pro project. We see a lot of people using this for really more of that precise, high volume edits that you need to perform. So you can use tools such as our data loading tool that is available to you in ArcGIS Pro. So if you already have your assets in a GIS and you'd like to move them into our data schema, you can go ahead and load those in. We also, in ArcGIS Pro, you have the ability to go ahead and add assets. So I can search for a feature that I want to add, and using our editing template, I could quickly go ahead and add the location. So while this is processing, this is a great time for a poll. Sorry, everyone. Are you seeing it now?
I see it, yes, and I'm hoping most of the attendees do too.
Okay. So we got the poll up, so if everyone could go ahead and fill that out. Now, so what I did was I just added a catch basin in ArcGIS Pro. And I also am going to add, while I'm here, I know that there was a green roof. I'm calling this green infrastructure. Many people know this as BMP. So these are all a part of the data schema that comes with stormwater data management. All the fields are ready for you to set up. They're set up for you, all ready to go. All you need to do is fill in whatever information you'd like to and go ahead and apply that information. And again, in ArcGIS Pro, you're typically going to see the GIS professionals using this and creating those mass edits. Now, while that's saving, let's go ahead and look at the poll. Okay, so it looks like you do have dedicated staff, but most of you don't have it dedicated specifically, or you have GIS staff, but not dedicated to stormwater. And then about 30% of you don't have GIS support at all. So this is actually one of the benefits, I think, to using ArcGIS solutions is not only do we have the availability to use ArcGIS Pro, but you're also able to use all of these information products in ArcGIS Online. And the reason why this is, I think, interesting is sometimes people find the barrier to entry to this a little bit easier to start using. And again, if you don't have GIS folks, this solution's giving you all the schema, all the attributes, all the fields, all the domains, everything you need to get up and get started. I wanted to show you ArcGIS Pro first, because as you can see, that catch basin and that green roof, they're already in my data, are in ArcGIS Online. I didn't have to do anything special. I'm editing the same data source. So I wanted to point that out. And from this editor, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a gravity pipe. I'm going to use my control, oh my goodness, to snap to that catch basin. And then I'm going to double click on that manhole to go ahead and finish drawing that. So it's really as simple as that. You can see that I have all of these attributes set up for you already, that you can just hit the ground running out in the field with that GPS or in the office by editing this data. This is set up for editors. So people with access to editing, people that you want to be able to move with your data, but there's also a viewer included. So you might share this with an admin staff, or if you're in the public works department, your planning department's going to want access to your stormwater data. So you might give them this access to this map that has viewing capability only. And then one of the key features we have in our data management solutions is this concept of map notes. So just like when you move from paper to an electronic workflow, sometimes people struggle with how do we have that kind of informal communication with each other? And so map notes are really great. Like, for example, here's a general note. And if we go ahead and look at this and zoom to it, I can see, okay, someone's marked that when I go to this location, this is my gate code that I'm going to need to plug in order to access this location. Maybe I am an operations manager Well, I see that someone said that this catch basin right here is broken and clogged. So I can go ahead and put this in. Maybe I have a different system that I use for maintenance purposes. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to update that. And I can also say, oh, this is in the wrong location. So as the stormwater manager, someone says this is a wrong location. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and ask my field staff to go out and GPS that again. We have a dashboard ready for you too, so you can start looking at your system as a whole and reporting information about it. So we've got just some of your basic assets on the main page, some information about your pipes, and maybe you want to look at some information about your BMP areas, and then different green infrastructure that might be in your community. All of this is pre-configured for you. It is free. It is ready for you to deploy and download today. And it can be configured and changed for your organizational needs as well. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to pass this over to Shawnetta Grandberry. Her official title is program manager, but I call her Stormwater Rockstar. So I know you all are going to just love what she has to talk to you about today.
Okay, well, thank you. Let me get my video all ready to share to you. My name is Shawnetta Grandberry. I'm with the city of Carlsbad. I have been involved in stormwater compliance here in Southern California for the last 20 plus years. And I've been an environmentalist for 35 years. And I want to talk today about our configuring ArcGIS for stormwater asset management. Today, I'm going to talk about what our stormwater or environmental assets are, why I'm here, how this journey even got started. I also want to talk about our program, how we developed this project, our performance and effectiveness, how some of the GIS building blocks. And so let's start this journey. So what are the environmental assets or stormwater assets that we're talking about? Most of them fall under the category of green infrastructure. So we're talking about the entire approach to water quality management, anything that's going to be protecting, restoring, filtering out, mimicking our natural water cycle. So a lot of times when we have our post-construction BMP programs, we have something called Stormwater Management Plan, which outlines all of the treatment control and source control and green infrastructure or LID features that are associated with the project. So this is to ensure that anything that's coming off of that project does not impact our waterways. So of course, for most of you are familiar, if you're in a stormwater workshop, of course, you're going to be familiar, but most of these common green infrastructure types are environmental assets or stormwater assets you see all over cities. You just probably are not aware that they are there. So they are bioretention basins, infiltration trenches, storm drain filters, vortex separators, baskets for storm drain inlets. So just know that when I say green infrastructure or treatment control BMP or environmental assets, I'm talking about all of these types of structures. So let's get into kind of what I call my journey into why I even am here today to talk to you about this. I'm not a GIS expert, but I am someone who works as one of the end users for a lot of GIS stuff. So what I call my folder extinction journey really begins with the regulatory background and the environmental laws that are laid down by the Environmental Protection Agency, the federal agency responsible for implementing the Clean Water Act. So under the Clean Water Act, all that authority is granted to, in California, the State Water Resources Control Board, and then that's also delegated further down into regions for the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and then they make the municipal permits that are issued to all the jurisdictions like the city of Carlsbad. So specifically for our environmental assets or our green infrastructure, we are required by the state of California to confirm that they are all designed and constructed to maintain and remove pollutants, that we develop and maintain an updated watershed-based inventory of our post-construction BMPs, that we verify that they are all maintained and operating effectively, that we conduct 100% inspections of our high priority structures each prior to each rainy season, and that we also document and ensure that all of the required maintenance has been completed. So when I first started this program way back in 2008, of course, me being me, not really a techie person, I'm going to go to Excel. All roads lead to Excel. And so when I began tracking this, it wasn't, a lot of information I needed to track in our initial back in 2008 permit, which started this requirement for the inventory and maintenance and inspections of these environmental assets. So when I did this, it seemed logical. I had about 200 plus structures, so it was easy to maintain. But then we start fast forward year after year, more regulations, more requirements, more information that I have to keep track of. And by the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, I had about 47 columns and 1,461 rows of information. So for those of you who are doing the math in your head, and those of you can't, that's nearly 70,000 fields of data that I was keeping track of in an Excel spreadsheet. And of course, I'm the only one that uses this spreadsheet, that knows where all these assets are. And of course, we have our GIS system that keeps track of information. They keep track of the point and what the asset is, but not the inspections, not the maintenance, not the changes in responsible party and other information that goes along with that. So in addition to our spreadsheet, that comes with paper. So I have to have inspection forms and letters and requests for information, change of address, maintenance, enforcement actions. We were using approximately 10,000 sheets of paper a year just to manage this program, not including all of the folders that are involved for each one of our structures. In the last 15 years, our program growth has been about 849%. So we started out with about 236 structures on the inventory. And as of today, I believe we're just hit over 2,000. We're at 2,036 structures. And when I started this project, we were just about to hit 1,500 structures on our city inventory. So considering all of this information about this program being Excel-based, it's cumbersome, I'm using multiple databases to track information, time-consuming. I'm the only one who knows what's going on. I'm the only one who knows about what's going on in the spreadsheet. No one else has access to it. The city told us we couldn't. This is towards the end of 2019, and the city said that we couldn't have any new software. Everything had to be vetted. Plus, if we could get new software, it was going to be super expensive. I have a very small program, and none of this is sustainable. So what do? At the end of 2019, right before we got into the whole COVID quarantine, new business systems analysts came aboard. And I've had business systems analysts and specialists look at my project and work with the city for the last 10 years, 10 years prior to that. And I'd already set goals. It's just another opportunity to meet with someone and tell them that they can't help me. That's kind of how I looked at it. And I told them what my goals were. I wanted to reduce time. I wanted to improve my data tracking, increase the public responses, have better situational awareness. When you just have a spreadsheet, you just have a list of structures. You don't really have where are all these location. And yeah, I can look at it on our city's GIS map, but I can't interact with it or schedule anything with it. I wanted to save money, so whatever we did, I don't have a lot of money to spend on it. And most of all, it had to be user friendly because, like I've said to anybody who asks me in the GIS field and all these software companies, I am not into technology. I use it, of course, but it's because of necessity, not because I'm really super interested in it. So it has to be very friendly for whoever's going to use it. So like I said, we looked at our internal solutions, and again, there were none because there's I have a very small program for a very niche kind of thing that's in the city. So unless it's going to, the city's not spending money on software, unless it's helping actually, more than one people, it probably needs to help at least over five people maintain a program. So there weren't any internal solutions for software we already owned or had licenses for. And then we set up meetings with vendors to discuss, the project, what we wanted to do. And of course, vendors are expensive. We got quotes between $100,000 to $350,000. So we started brainstorming and really looking at what types of software do we have in the city that we're licensed for? And we looked at what data we need to use, the files, the contacts, the outcomes, what do we want to produce? We also created a diagram of our workflow. And what's really important is not necessarily that you can read all of this, but where all these white box kind of wavy areas are all the areas where paper is coming into the process. And all the different colors represent when another software has to be used to maintain my program. And then we started, well, what do all these softwares do? Where does paper enter? How can we find efficiencies? And that's when we started to build the team. So we couldn't, our business system specialist and myself didn't have all the answers, but so we started looking who in the city, which position would be able to help us work out. We know what we have, we know what we want to do. We need a GIS administrator because they have that technical background and understanding what GIS can do. We need an engineering tech to be able to enter all of our points accurately. And we also need a technical assistant, someone to go out in the field and do the field work and do the testing. And then we can see how this is going to work. So we got everything together. We put together our data entry, our QA, QC, our field inspections, and our system tests. We entered 4,500 records. So what did we end up creating? So we created a comprehensive way to ensure compliance and measure program effectiveness while virtualizing the system as an integrated network. That's our fancy way of saying that we created the action system: automation, compliance, tracking, inspections, and owner notification. And what it does is everything that I listed in my goals. I'm decreasing staff time, I'm reducing documentation, I have that situational awareness. And what we found out is that no one had really been able to do what we've done. You know, it's just our little tiny program and us trying to figure out the best way. But since we weren't using a contractor or a consultant to design something, we can make it whatever we want to, as long as we're using all of our licensable software that was available for or applicable to our program. So what are the key features? So we have a data management module, and believe it or not, I am like an amateur GIS technician. I do data entry and management. I do information validation. I can track current historical information. I can use it on any desktop browser. I can plot my own points. I can update information about structures, and this all sets separately from our system of record, our main GIS system, which keeps track of all our trees and infrastructure and roads and street lights, but just have a separate set apart system that's just keeping track of our green infrastructure where I can manage. I don't have to go to the GIS department. We'll also have a dashboard, because if you're doing anything with ArcGIS or Esri, you're gonna have a dashboard. And now I have that whole view of the program, that situational awareness of where structures are, how many inspections are happening, where my inspector is at any given point, how many verifications of maintenance have come in, comparing this information to last year, our number of responsible parties, total number of structures that we're adding on a weekly basis, keeping track of all that, and reducing any risk that might be associated with non-compliance. Of course, we're doing inspections using the system. We're able to attach photos in the field. Before, I had to fill out a paper just like everybody else. Then we go and print the photos and attach that to the paper with scribbles all over it. Then I'd enter that data. Now it's all directly connects to the field. I get about every 15 minutes an update from the field that I can see on my dashboard, and it's available on Apple, Windows, and Android. Now, this was the key part of the action system, because I told my business system specialist and my GIS administrator, if there's no interaction with the public, you know, that part about maintenance records that come from the public showing that they are not modifying their green infrastructure, they're maintaining it, it still exists, it hasn't been removed, is a self-verification portal. Now the public can go to their own portal where they can get information about their structures. They don't have to send out mailers or emails. It's real-time feedback. It's streamlining communication. We've also created a web page that we never had before. So this has been the real game changer as far as being more interactive with the public. So, and this journey is just beginning, because we are, we continue to innovate. We continue to try to make the program better. Now, for you techie people, now I can't get in all the hardware and how we built it and what are the Python scripts and all that nomenclature that you guys use in the industry, but I have created our technical architecture, which I can share if someone's interested in finding out how we did this. And all the ArcGIS software that we use. So we're using the Web App Builder, the Survey 123, our dashboards, the field maps, the story maps, the ArcGIS Experience Builder. And because it's our own system that we created in-house, and again, no extra public funds, this was all created by staff, we were able to integrate Microsoft Office, Tableau. We are using the GIS server, Word. We're using everything as long as it can plug in and make it into one program where you don't have to go outside. We're plugging everything in where it fits together. So has this been effective? Does it even work? How do we even show that it works? So when you talk about metrics and measuring the success of a program, a lot of people don't think about that, especially when they're developing it. But I have metrics I have to report to the state as a part of the municipal permit. So I'm always thinking about numbers and what needs to be reported and what information is good to show to the managers or the city manager, city council, whenever you need to support a decision for more resource or allocation for more resources or staff or time, you should be able to show, like, is your program, does it even work? So we determine what, in addition to the metrics that are required to be reported to our regional board for compliance with the permit, we also have key indicators that document, for cost, responsiveness, community satisfaction, how we're managing our time. And what we found out is that we were able, because we implemented this program, we were able to reduce program costs by 48%. We reduced paper and file usage by 92%. So no more mailers, no more sitting there with staples and envelopes. We reduced paper costs of the cost of paper and files by 87% for our program. The amount of time it takes to do inspections by 90%. We've timed it. We can do an inspection in about 30 seconds now. And then there's some other soft metrics that come in as far as submittals for our verification of maintenance. We're up 480% compared to the previous years. Our action story map has visited, actually it's over 2,500 now this last 6 months. So we're over 2,500 visits. We saved all that money, even though we had a budget. It could have been out. We could have requested it. We didn't have to spend it. So we saved $100,000 to $350,000 by being able to do this in-house. We repurposed 1,500 folders. Apparently, the librarians love folders. And of course, because like I said, I didn't know we were creating something that hadn't been done in the stormwater GIS industry yet. So we were able to be eligible for lots of awards. And so we won 5 awards, local awards, state, national. I'm most proud of our Esri Award, Special Achievement in GIS Award that we won just in July. Of 100 projects, only 100 projects in the United States received this award, so it's very prestigious. And we also won the best public outreach project for the California Stormwater Quality Association, and so we're very proud of that also. If you want to get more details about, this is 20 minutes I have for you today, but if you want to get more details, Esri has written some great articles about our project and program and what we did in Art News, and also on the water industry blog on their webpage. We've been in American Infrastructure Magazine, Tri-State Magazine, Granicus blog also wrote a great story about our project. So lastly, I do like to end things with some lessons learned about this. And one of the great things that I learned from my business system specialist was set happens, and that's systematic errors in the text. If you're going from an Excel spreadsheet that one or a few people have been maintaining and doing keystrokes in for years and years, there's going to be errors. And when I used to look at my Excel spreadsheet, I would see errors and I quickly correct them. But now, when I had to move that information over into GIS, those errors become more apparent. So don't get frustrated with it. That's the purpose of why we have to do QA/QC. It's essential. We spent the first 4 to 6 months of this project and continually doing QA/QC. But when we went from the Excel spreadsheet to the full to action system, we spent 4 to 6 months going through every line. That's 70,000 fields of data. We comb through and try to get the errors out as much as we can. And every year, probably every quarter, we go through and do QA/QC again. So it's very important that you continue. Configuration versus customization. Again, another key thing. At first, when I wanted to buy software to do this, I thought, we get with some company and they'd configure whatever software they've created to meet our needs, which usually doesn't work because you're not going to get all of your needs met. So when you have customization, that's when you can bring in different tools, the things that work best for not only the end user, but also I have to think about how the public is going to be using this and what they're used to looking at on their online platforms. And of course, lastly, be prepared to rethink everything. As an environmentalist and not a techie person, I just think about things how I'm using them. I probably think about how the public wants to use them. And it might not be the most efficient way to do things. So when my GIS administrator or my business systems specialist would give an idea out, I have to be open, maybe the way I'm thinking about things is not the best way to do things. So just know that that's going to happen and be prepared and be open and flexible. So I really want to thank everyone for inviting us today. I want to thank everyone that came out for the presentation, for this workshop. Next up, I would like to have Nikolas, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing, Smilovsky, come in. Let me stop sharing my screen. And everyone have a great day, and thank you for having me.
Thanks, Shawnetta. Hopefully everybody can see my screen now. That was a wonderful presentation. I probably shouldn't have signed up to go after you because that is a hard act to follow. And I just want to say congratulations on being pioneers in your customization and that proprietary solution for Carlsbad. That is very, very inspiring. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about flooding the digital database and not your streets. My name is Dr. Nick Smilovsky. I work for Bad Elf. We'll discuss what Bad Elf is here in just a moment. But before we dive into my short presentation, I wanted to ask a quick poll. The polls are going to be wrapped around if you are interested in geospatial solutions and potentially if you have a time frame for your solution. And if you were planning to implement geospatial solutions, would you want to do that internally within your organization or perhaps get some type of counsel or consulting help to implement that? After my presentation, we will come back to those answers. Okay, so without further ado, let's talk a little bit about flooding the digital database. So today we're going to talk about who Bad Elf is. We're going to quickly run through some ideas and concepts around what I like to call stormy weather. We're going to discuss why it is paramount and important to have a digital system of record to mitigate stormwater issues. We're going to discuss collecting assets with Bad Elf GNSS, also creating stormwater solutions. So I'm going to come, fortunately, Brandi and Shawnetta did a really good job talking about the Esri solutions. We're going to talk a little bit about how Bad Elf can customize and help you with those solutions. And how do we get there through geospatial enablement? And we're going to kind of wrap up this short presentation with a promising future in partnership. So who's Bad Elf? If you haven't heard of us, we've been around for a little over 13 years. We are a low-cost alternative company that creates GPS receivers or GNSS. So we empower GIS survey and government professionals to collect high accuracy field data using any phone, tablet, or laptop, kind of following in the DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. We are agnostic to the devices and apps that we use. So you can use iOS, Android, or Windows. And then you can also leverage Bad Elf's experience, not only to buy hardware, so, great GPS, but we can actually help you design, implement, deploy, train all these different custom systems of record. And so we joke that, get ready for the revolution. So Bad Elf is more than just a GPS company. We come alongside customers and we really want to help them innovate. So we talk about stormy weather, and I want to put some context to why we're talking about storm water management today. And so maybe taking a 30,000 foot view, maybe that's a bad joke about weather. Man, 30,000 foot. Anywho, so I want to make a couple points. Stormwater damage, for an example, costs municipalities billions of dollars each year. In the US alone, they've cost municipalities between $2 billion and $10 billion annually. So $2 to $10 billion annually in the US. Types of damages to from stormwater includes property damage, infrastructure damage, and the cost of cleaning up the pollution associated. And Shawnetta just discussed being an environmentalist. I mean, in a lot of ways, stormwater management is not just about risk mitigation, but it's about environment protection. Did you know that the cost of stormwater damage is only increasing? As climate change leads to more extreme weather events, the cost of stormwater damage is going to continue to rise. I think that's pretty apparent. In 2017, the Natural Resources Defense Council found that the cost of stormwater damage in the United States could reach nearly $30 billion by 2050. Stormwater damage is disproportionately affecting low-income communities. Let me say this again. So stormwater disproportionately affects low-income communities. So this means that mitigating stormwater effects is actually helping the marginalized people in our communities. Low-income communities are often built in areas that are more prone to flooding, and they are less likely to have the resources to repair and protect their homes and businesses from stormwater damage. In 2018, a study by the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, found that low-income communities are 3 times more likely to experience flooding. So let me say that again. Low-income communities are often in prone areas that are going to be impacted by stormwater. And these low-income communities, because of that, are 3 times more likely to experience flooding than those high-income communities. So if we're going to continue to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and sustainability, resiliency through the environment, this is a critical component of that. In 2012, the Environmental Finance Research Foundation, EFRF, found that the median annual stormwater budget for municipalities in the United States was about $17 per person. Now, that's a median annual stormwater budget, and that doesn't qualify the size of your, say, state and local government agency or your municipality. That could be tier 1 through 5, so mega cities over 1 million people down to smaller rural communities. The study also found that these budgets can actually vary from areas to areas as much as $1 per person to $100 per person. And obviously, these variations are attributed to a lot of different factors, including size, like we mentioned, how much impervious surface. This is how much, we talk about often mitigating heat island effect, right? Where we have a lot of asphalt and concrete. Well, the other issue is impervious surfaces have drainage issues, right? Also, the frequency of rainfall. If you're in an arid desert community versus, a forested area, you may have different amounts of stormwater events. And then obviously the cost of labor and materials. Here are some pictures from different places in the world. This is actually coming from Australia. So this is some specific stormwater damage, right? And I put these pictures up to really kind of hit home and emphasize why it's so important, right? So here's another issue of stormwater with flooding, pollution, trash. Obviously, transportation is an issue, flooding. Again, this destroys all types of infrastructure. And I lived in the city of Phoenix for almost 15 years, and it is a canaled city. And this is the type of stuff you can see in urban areas when stormwater events are major. And obviously, this is disgusting, right? This is not how we want to manage the places that we live, eat, sleep, play, right? Work. Another great example where, flooding has just totally encapsulated a community. So how do we mitigate this stuff? Well, we need to have flood prevention, right? So the more we know about our stormwater management, our systems, the more we can do flood prevention. The more we know about our stormwater, the better we can manage and mitigate stormwater runoff and making sure that the water quality is good, right? We don't want pollutants going all over the place, sediment, oil, grease, heavy metals, nutrients, right? We know these things literally leach into our systems like food systems and such. Infrastructure resiliency, right? So uncontrolled stormwater can erode soil, damage infrastructure. Compliance with regulations. Shawnetta mentioned in California, there's some regulations. So depending where you are, you may have state or local or federal requirements that you need to follow, right? And so the more you map these things and have systems of record, the better you'll be able to mitigate. And obviously, the preservation of natural resources. Resources are extremely important for humanity, right? For civilization. So we need to manage and protect them and understand them. So why do we need these digital systems of record? Well, inventory management, maintenance planning, resource allocation, compliance and reporting, community engagement, data-driven decision making. Holy cow, Shawnetta mentioned, I love this quote, and I may repeat this, Shawnetta, all roads lead to Excel. Who out there of the 400 plus people on this room, all roads lead to Excel? That is something that's been said for years, if not decades. And as we move towards GIS, we really want to get towards relational databases and not 70,000 fields of data in an unorganized, kind of unintelligent Excel file. If you're talking about config versus customization, like Shawnetta said, these are why we need intelligent systems of record. Before you can even have a system of record, you have to go and collect those assets. And so having good data on the front end creates good decision on the back end. Bad Elf, we create GPS or GNSS receivers to collect positional data in the field. Bad Elf Flex is our fully survey grade. If you really need to collect high accuracy, high tolerance data, perhaps for flow modeling, if you're looking at distribution of water, or our Flex Mini, which is an extremely affordable unit, under $1,500. Gets you under a foot of accuracy. It's a great way to go out and collect authoritative data with the masses. Perhaps you have an entire crew or city public service group that goes out and collects those assets, those technicians that were discussed earlier, right? So we create the GPS that goes out and collect these data. But we also help implement the solutions that the GPS populate. So we've heard quite a bit about stormwater data management as one of the ArcGIS solutions. And I just want to show you that Bad Elf absolutely 100% utilizes the ArcGIS solutions to help our customers get from zero to hero as fast as possible in the geospatial game. And so we create hub sites and different types of story maps to really help our users get through this process. I noticed someone had asked about like ArcGIS solutions. These are solutions that most licenses of Esri out there, people that your organization may have, but they may not have the time nor the resources or the wherewithal to go out and implement these things. So my challenge to you, the call of action, is if you need to update your digital systems of record for proper stormwater management, how about you give Bad Elf a call? We can help you out not only with some of the most affordable GPSs on the market, but most importantly, we can help you get that solution deployed immediately, so you're immediately getting the benefits for your local community. So how do we get there, right? So I mentioned we enable the customer. We call it the Geospatial Enablement Team at Bad Elf, or GET for short. I said zero to hero. Leverage us, so we take the hits and you don't. We provide turnkey processes to help our customers choose the right product, solutions, and services. I go back to what Shawnetta said about configuration versus customization. At Bad Elf, we do both. We don't want to cram down a square peg into a round hole and say, this is the configuration you need for your city. Because you know what? The city of Carlsbad is a lot different than the city of San Marcos, where I am in Texas. And that's not a bad thing. That just means the constituents of that city or municipality may have different priorities, different environmental things that we need to configure and understand. So at Bad Elf, we don't just do config, we do customization. We can come in and audit your system with you. We're also Esri business partners. So if you already have Esri, we can work with your local account manager to assist them in this process. If you are not an Esri customer today, Bad Elf can even sell you those licenses, get you an account manager, and get you into this massive global ecosystem of GIS. Almost done, I promise, right? So we offer these consulting packages for all different size organizations. I mentioned we use ArcGIS solutions for maximum value. You cannot even imagine the amount that Esri has done work-wise in creating templated packages, whether it's stormwater, trees, right-of-way, signs, you name it. There's a lot of work been done to create these really intelligent databases and schemas that we can implement where you don't necessarily have to create it from scratch. When Shawnetta started her process 30, 20, 10 years ago, ArcGIS solutions didn't exist. And I can only imagine that if she had talked to Bad Elf at the time and we had implemented something like this, we probably could have cut out 30 to 70% of the manual labor up front and really helped her get to the goal at the end of the day. Obviously, this is a newer thing to offer. Now, I'm going to wrap up my presentation with something I call a promising future. Yesterday, I was at a GIS Day event in Austin, Texas at the Austin Community College. This is the Public Works building for the city of Austin that happens to sit nestled in the campus. Behind where we were doing presentations was this really neat area. And you can literally see it says the future of water management. This area, and it's actually the photos facing one direction, but it's behind the photo as well. This entire area of campus is designed to use sustainable and resilient and adaptable practices to manage stormwater. And so you can see that there are catch basins designed, underground systems and filtrations where the water runs off into cisterns and it's purified. We've got watering, like basically water features that also help collect the water and pull the water into these reusable situations, right? In the middle of this is actually a leaching field in a way for the stormwater, and you can see literally the stormwater drains in the middle. This stormwater also keeps all the plants and the greenery and the atrium all within this central area, all fed and powered with the benefits of stormwater. If we can capture the stormwater because we know where it is, what it's doing, where it's going, we can utilize the power of the stormwater to feed our communities. So that's a pretty awesome thing. I'm just a few minutes over, so hopefully that didn't bore you. I'd say this: if you have never talked to Bad Elf, reach out to us. You can do sales@bad-elf.com or nick@bad-elf.com. We would love to talk with you and partner with you to help you get to your geospatial success. So I mentioned we were going to do a couple polls. So poll 1, is your organization interested in implementing a geospatial solution? So about 50% of you all said we are. 45% said maybe. And I think the funniest part, 14 of you all said no, computers scare me. Yeah, they scare me too. I'm just kidding. What is your time frame to implement a geospatial solution? Most of you at 66% said next year, which is very inspiring, especially in America with a lot of the infrastructure money. The next largest percentage was ASAP at 12%, which was neat. So a lot of y'all are obviously realizing the necessity to get good, intelligent solutions. This year, 11%. So, I mean, what that basically says to me is almost 90% of the people in this meeting, and there's hundreds of you here, all need stormwater solutions sooner than later. That's inspiring. Last but not least, where are you planning to implement geospatial solutions? 81% of you said internally, 9% externally, and 10% said not planning to implement. Okay, so with that, thank you for the feedback. And again, thank you for being here today. I'd like to invite our next presenter up on stage. His name is Simon Newton. He's with Bentley Systems, and he's going to talk about a lot smarter things than me. So I'm going to sit back and take some notes. Simon, let me stop sharing my screen and pass the baton to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Nick. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, but I'm very happy to be here on the call, following up on 3 excellent presentations. So hopefully I can use my session to run into how we can leverage all of that data we have collected. So hello everyone, Simon Newton, part of our solutions engineering team here at Bentley. And I focus in on our hydrology and hydraulic products. So really happy to be here and discuss how we can take that data we have collected through Bad Elf. We have stored it in our GIS databases, and then we can leverage that to actually investigate flow, depths, extent of our flooding, all of those aspects that you may want to do for that risk analysis, and also just determine how impacts of changes apply to your system. So Bentley in the water industry here, we do provide software solutions for all of our hydraulics and hydrology. So storm, sewer, water distribution, transient analysis. We have our OpenFlow software, which is the brand that covers all of these software. So we've been around for a pretty long time, and we've got over 100,000 engineers using our OpenFlow software across the globe. So pretty robust solutions, and happy to be here to show how we can link in with our geospatial data sources and also leverage that data as well. So we've looked at, so far in this presentation, all of those aspects we can bring in. So Brandi jumped in and we saw inputting some gravity conduits and catch basins. We also looked at some of those attribute fields that you can use. So pipe properties, catch basin size, all of that information we can store in that geospatial, and then use that for our hydraulic and hydrology analysis here. Also, as part of that geospatial data source, you may have some soil maps, you may have some land use data, you may have a digital elevation model. All of those things we can leverage and use within our hydraulic and hydrology analysis. So we've got two separate data sources here. We've got that geospatial data source. I'm going to call that my external data. And I've got my hydraulic and hydrology analysis here. So within that hydraulic and hydrology analysis, we'll be going through our storm software, which I'll touch on here in a moment. But we've got outlet structures. We have to determine how we want to run that simulation. Are we looking at one time step, our steady state, or are we looking at a hydrograph or a storm event actually impacting our network? So it's going to be our simulation parameters. Also got lots of different analysis types that we can run through. So different infiltration rates, looking at land use types, more impervious catchments in the future, new developments. How is that going to impact our existing network? So we can take all of that information and we can bring it into one of our softwares. So this is our vertical of our storm collections modeling. I've highlighted the first three here. Pond Pack, as the name suggests, is pond modeling. Culvert Master, you may have guessed, is for culverts. And Flow Master is just for our individual hydraulic calculations. So great for those QA/QC. If you're looking at plans or GIS, you just want to do a quick tabular representation of that. We can look at gutters, we can look at inlets, we can look at single conduits, all of those aspects very quickly using our FlowMaster software. However, typically when we're dealing with our networks, we're going to have to look at our steady state or unsteady state design here. So we've got a specific software for that. On the steady state, so it's just looking at one time step, we have got a StormCAD software. The StormCAD software is looking at that peak flow design using the rational method, and it just includes one solver. So great for hydraulic grade lines, design, meeting those regulations, and also looking at those peak flows. If we're thinking about more complex systems, so maybe we've got some ponds, maybe we want to route our hydrographs throughout our system, we need to jump into some unsteady state network design. So unsteady, that's going to look over a period of that storm event, so 24 hours, 48-hour storm event. We can bring that rainfall data into our system and use some of the solvers as part of our civil storm. So civil storm builds on Pond Pack, Culvert Master, Flow Master, and StormCAD functionality, and Civil Storm utilizes a couple of different solvers here. So Civil Storm actually has 4 different solvers that we can choose from and create the best analysis for us. So we've got the implicit, which is a dynamic wave. We've also got the explicit. So if you're familiar with the swim engine, we utilize that engine to create some unsteady state network design analysis for us. We also have got a 2D solver, which links those surface flows to our 1D networks. So pretty nice analysis type here for us. And then at the top of my hierarchy, we have got Sewer Gems. So Sewer Gems builds on all of our storm water modeling software. And it also brings across our other collections modeling, which is our sanitary. So we can do combined systems pretty nicely as part of our Sewer Gems. Also, another feature of our Sewer Gems is it integrates with our GIS. So it can leverage that native capability in ArcGIS Pro, say, or ArcMap, and we can run hydraulic calculations very nicely in there. So we can leverage those layouts that you already have set up. We can bring in external background data that you don't want to bring across into your hydraulic model, and we can use that to inform our modeling decisions. So lots of opportunity there to build out our system. So since we are dealing with our GIS stormwater data, we went through a number of ways we could store that through Brandi and Shawnetta's presentation here. Once we've got that data, we've done the hard work. What we want to do is actually take that data and apply some hydraulic model attributes to it, so we can look at our depth, flows, velocities, flooding extent, hazard risk analysis for that, that you may have some surface flows there. So we have got a nice synchronization workflow here that really matches our GIS external data to our hydraulic model. So this will be initially the first time we can use these things called snapshots. So snapshots just look at our external data, takes a snapshot of that data. So it just says, what are our pipe sizes, our pipe material type, our manhole inverts, our catch basin types. It'll take a look at that data before we input it into the model. It will save that and allow us to compare it to a next time we update our model with our data. So we go along today, we've built our model, and in 6 months' time, we may have our construction activities have completed for the year. What we can do is we can take that external data and then we want to bring that into our model. When we do that though, we may have actually jumped into our model and created some changes. So we'd like to actually see the impact of this new updated GIS external data before we bring it into our model. So snapshots here, we'll take a snapshot of our existing data that we've brought in previously, and then it's going to look at our future data here. So we're 6 months in the future. We can take this other snapshot, which is still looking at all of those inverts, pipe material types, new pipes, and it will allow us to do some QA/QC before we bring that into the hydraulic model. So a nice tabular where you can compare and select what to update. So a nice synchronized workflow for us in between each of our model and our GIS here. And again, we can continue this on as many times. Once we've set this up, this model builder is a push and pull, but once we've set that up, we can use it over and over again. So it's a very simple process to actually see the differences in our stormwater data here. So we've looked at our software solutions. We've looked at how we can link to our GIS databases. Let's have a look at those top stormwater challenges we can solve here. So I think Nick pulled out some great images there of those green infrastructure, those LIDs, those SUDs, all of those things we can model within our hydraulic model, leveraging that data that you may have within your GIS system. So we have got an automated gravity pipe and inlet design, pretty smart for your network design. So if you've got new proposed subdivision, say, with new catchments, new drainage areas, we can use our GVF rational solver to actually determine those pipe sizes, inlet inverts, inlet sizing, all of those pretty nicely within our automated design constraint-based solution here. Also, if we're jumping into those pond modeling, lids, SUDs, green developments, we have got a number of ways to actually analyze that. Typically, we're going to use that dynamic solver, so that system over time, so we can actually look at that water quality and also route those through our detention ponds that we have got within our model here. Really, one of our aspects that make our modeling so easy is we've got scenarios and alternatives. This is really our optioneering, and where I can see this is very useful for us is we have an existing network. We load in our rainfall for the current period. We run that for our 10-year storm event. Everything looks great. And we want to assess what could happen if we have higher intensity on those storm events in the future. So we can jump in, create another scenario. Maybe it's looking at our 2050 rainfall events, and we can change that rainfall, run our model again, and quickly see how our system is going to react based on those two different storm events. So it allows us just to have some insights that we can create and really contrast that analysis for us. So all within the same model, we can use your engineering judgment or those analysis types that you'd like to see and create those scenarios and alternatives. And then lastly, we want to actually convey these model results. So using our color coding, profiles, graphs, either in our standalone or within our integrated version with ArcGIS Pro or ArcMap. So wrapping it all together, really, I see GIS. We had a look at those great presentations to start off with. We have that mapping of our stormwater systems, building that data out, make sure in that topology where that data is actually stored is correct using that bad ELF sensors. And once we've got that data, we can bring it into our hydraulic model and leverage that hydraulic modeling aspects here. So we can look at designing ponds and outlets. We can model that surcharge and flood protection, design our collection networks. This is where that hydraulic modeling leverages that data that you already have collected and apply some insights to that. So really where I see OpenFlow sitting in this equation is it's really the last step or an ongoing step in your stormwater management. And we can use our OpenFlows to understand how our stormwater systems operate and respond to our network and environmental changes here. So that's all I have got. So I'm going to ask all of our presenters to jump back on screen here and we'll go through a bit of a Q&A.
Well, thanks everyone. I feel infinitely smarter after these presentations, if not overwhelmed with the perspectives and insights and so on. And I mean that very sincerely. So I've got a few questions. Some of them are tied to the questions that were posed by the attendees, and most of them have been answered, I believe. There are a few outstanding ones, but I'm really interested in your observations on the polling. So if you can recall back some of the polls, maybe the demographic poll was not as critical, but yeah, any thoughts on what you got back from the polls in terms of feedback? Oh, Nick, I look, I don't know you, but I know I can count on you. So yeah.
Well, I'm just glad that the polls just popped up on my screen so I don't say anything silly. But
nothing like a cheat sheet. All right, go for it, Nick.
Fair enough. Yeah. Will, I think what's neat is I think what we're getting the sense of that people are interested in stormwater management right now. And this is completely anecdotal, not something we saw in the polls necessarily, but I would have to guess because of climate change, because of the environmental factors that we are seeing across the globe today, stormwater is a direct result of that and what's happening. We talk about heat and other stuff, but stormwater, I'd have to assume people are paying attention to it more now.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I'm really glad that, a number of you brought up the issue of the impacts of climate change really driving attention to stormwater. Just sort of, before I dive in, so to speak, to another question, any other comments on the polls from Shawnetta, Brandi, and Simon?
Yeah, I think that what I hear a lot from stormwater program managers is they're not receiving the same GIS support as maybe other maybe engineering or maybe planning or other departments or divisions in their local government. So one of the things I've been trying to understand is how could I help my GIS people, my technical people, understand the terminology of stormwater. Yes, climate change is impacting stormwater, but it's a highly regulated program that is very costly if you are not keeping up to date with the requirements. So sometimes that's actually a more persuasive way to get people involved. So I was not surprised by people not having dedicated. I was not surprised by people having no GIS support. So one of my goals is to help stormwater professionals by providing solutions that are easy to use, but provide what they need to get their jobs done and remain compliant.
So Brandi, before I ask Shawnetta and Simon to weigh in on this, it strikes me that stormwater is not sexy compared to leak detection and maybe some other things. And I hate to put it that way, but yeah, I think it's taken for granted. Shawnetta is nodding vigorously here.
I think it's something
Simon,
that people don't really consider because just rain falling out. It rains all the time, but people they never consider where is this water that's coming. They're just concerned about their own property not flooding, or maybe the street down their way to work, safe drive. They don't really see it as a conveyance system for not just the water, but also pollution.
Simon, why don't you weigh in, and I've got a comment.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everyone here. I think stormwater is that long lost brother almost of our sewer and our water distribution, but it is so important, especially when we're moving towards more of a catchment based approach, I find, with sizing these BMPs and detention ponds. So we've got those solutions that we can run through. Again, if you've got that data, you might as well leverage it as much as you can. And I see a lot of our users looking for those more intense storms in future. So you're not just looking 10, 20, 30 years in the future based on that master planning. So yeah, it is that long lost brother, but it is very important. And like Shawnetta said, it rains, it goes somewhere. I don't think most people appreciate where it actually goes. It's underground. Probably.
Part of the problem is sometimes it doesn't go anywhere, which is a pretty significant problem. Do you think that maybe the way to flip this around and really get people to pay more attention to stormwater is to really highlight the value of stormwater now? I'm in the American West, and we're going through aridification right now, impacts of climate change, but that's a lot of water down the drain that we could use for other purposes. I'm interested in your take on that.
Well, I'll go first. I think that people do have a general awareness, but they are not linking it to a personal, something that personally affects their everyday life. There's so much going on. Yeah, the city will take care of that, or the jurisdiction or take care of that. So what we really need to do is find these personal links with the communities that we work with and help them to understand the daily things. Like, do you have a bioretention or green infrastructure on your property? Are you aware there's one that your property drains to? Are you aware what happens to your trash when it's on the street, or if it doesn't get taken out? Or all these things are interrelated. People don't think about the environment, but when you ask them, do you care if the water is clean? They always say yes,
Right.
because if you have clean air, open spaces. So people are environmentally thinking, but they haven't really personalized how to do these things and impact their everyday life. Like when the street is flooded, or when you can't go surfing right after it's rain in California. You can't go surfing, 72 hours after a storm event. When we have problems with our water quality in specific areas, when you can't go fishing or you can't go boating, those kinds of things that impact people's everyday lives and recreational activities.
Shawnetta, you made me laugh. You brought up such a critical point. It's, how do we connect humanity to water and make it very personal? And then people start to act regardless of, where they sit. It might just be civil society. It might be professionals like yourselves and in other industry sectors. So really connecting humanity to water is, I think a untapped opportunity, so to speak.
Will, if I could jump in quickly, just echoing and building off of the discussion. Recently, I was talking with a GIS technician for a podcast, and we were discussing trees. Now, we're not talking trees today, but they asked, how do we get people to love trees more? Well, and my response to them was connecting the trees to humanity, and in the same vein, connecting the water to them. And so I mentioned there's a free software out there, for an example. It's called iTree. It was created by the USDA and a company called Davy Trees. I'm digressing a bit, but I promise there's a purpose here. When you go collect all your city's trees, which is one of the biggest assets the city has, it creates and computates, 20 or 30 different values. One of those values it calculates right out of the gate is stormwater benefit. It gives you a dollar amount associated with the trees. And if you were to then take that to the public and say, did you know that trees and stormwater cost you X amount of dollars and that impacts whatever, so community engagement and getting those numbers out there to educate the public kind of as a ground up approach, I think is a one way to definitely attack it.
Okay, Nick, so I want to run with this one now. have you all seen the recent WWF report on the value of water? They did a study with a consulting firm, and based on data from 2021, they quantified the global value of water to the global economy. And it was, I believe it was $56 trillion, which is 60% of the global GDP. Which I throw this out because I want to ask a question. How do you quantify the value of the digital tools that you're bringing to the table? And, you know, Shawnetta, you're, you know, at the center of all this in terms of implementing it for the benefit of community and a city. So just running with that value proposition. So do you quantify it? How do you frame it as you go to market, and how do you deploy solutions?
Well, as I discussed with our metrics, cost was a hard one. So we did hard costs, things that I know exactly how much I spend money on. So that was, you know, the inspection, how long it takes someone to do something versus, you know, how much we're paying them per hour to do that task. And then the value added, you know, I talked about how much we would have spent if we went to use an outside vendor versus doing it inside. But really, I haven't sat down and really thought, what is the full-on value of specifically what we've created with our action system? You know, it's kind of hard. You know, we have staff time and continued staff time and team meetings and things like that that continue to, it adds value to the public and it adds value to the city. So it's like not really, it's priceless, as you know, you could say. But yeah, I think that is a good exercise that municipality, maybe even myself, need to consider, like, what is the real value of what we created, what we're doing, and what we want to do in the future.
Just what you needed, Shawnetta, one more action item on your dance card, so to speak, in terms of things to do. I'm willing to bet you're grossly overloaded with work, but I do think the whole value of water conversation is just emerging as a driver in the public sector and the private sector. And
it's going to become more important because people really like that dollar when you can show, like, you know, those numbers that I gave you in my presentation really puts, I feel, I've been told that it puts things in more perspective of what we're doing. It's great to say we created this program, but if we can't show what the value is as far as time saved, resources saved, different allocations of resources and funds and budgeting, then I think that the public might not really, that connection we were talking about, because of course, the public's thinking, how much taxes am I paying? Or how much is it going to cost me? So yeah, I think that's really a really important exercise.
I want to come back to something you touched on about workforce, you know, capacity and interest in digital transformation and digital tools. But before I go there, I think most of the questions that were posted were answered. However, what are the questions that we should just throw out to the group and discuss? You know, everyone here. Nick, I'm gonna call on you since you brought this up.
Yeah, I noticed there were several questions wrapped around kind of the technical capacity of the ArcGIS solution. And Brandi graciously already answered a lot of those. And I think what I really just wanted to get to is, it's like, what was the old, like, if you build it, they will come, Field of Dreams sort of thing. Like, GIS is so flexible and so resilient and intelligent these days that basically any of the questions asked can be done. Now, does the solution have it immediately? Maybe not. Could you work with an account manager at Esri or Bentley to get the solution integrated? You're dang right you could. Could you work with a third party like Bad Elf to help implement these solutions? Absolutely. And so I just want to kind of, you know, get it out there that on the technical side of things, it has gotten so much easier. And, you know, we talk about disseminating information, like giving Shawnetta more stuff to go talk to the community. Well, Esri dashboards, Esri story maps, Esri hub sites, just you can even send out citizen science type stuff through field maps and Survey 123. And the integration between CAD systems like Bentley and Esri have never been more friendly than they are today. We used to not all get along very well, and we sat in our own silos and nothing ever happened. And it was like, oh God, I have a DGN. What do I do? You know, not anymore, right? And so I at least feel, and maybe I'm the eternal optimist, we're getting closer to this truly collaborative nature. When we talk about BIM, we talk about the digital twin, right? Like 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D. So it's not just spatial stuff, but when you go to 4D, right? So 2D is flat, 3D is your three-dimensional model. Your 4D incorporates temporal data, so time. You put time into the factor, and then 5D, you start talking cost, and 6D is actually decision making. So now you're taking GIS, you're taking specialty like environmental planning and you know, kind of the theoretical academic side, and you're also getting CAD, and you're merging all these things together. And in a lot of ways, you know, the power is endless, and it's like, what can we do, right? And again, I notice a lot of these questions. Esri has provided these solutions. There are so many of them prepackaged for people to get involved with, you know, and that's how Bad Elf, we leverage that, you know, extensively. I noticed that there, you know, was there a culvert solution? Culverts are part of several solutions, but what we can do is help you, or the account manager, we can help tease out that solution you need. So you're not trying to solve the world's problem, but you are trying to say solve some stormwater issue in your city. So
Hey, Nick, I have to comment that I think you need to be a little bit more passionate about the topic. I really just so reserved.
all right, I'm silencing myself. I'm going on mute.
No, please. I have a hard time believing the four of you don't get along or didn't ever get along. It seems like you are knit together seamlessly. Let me ask a couple more questions. Were there any questions that were not asked that maybe should have been asked by the attendees here? I mean, what I mean by that is there sort of a critical issue, a topic that you want to highlight that didn't come up in the Q&A?
I'll jump in here. So one of the questions asked was, do you want a solution? And there was a lot of maybes. And so
Yeah, right.
we can't get into that here, but I would venture to guess that maybe is because they don't know what it's going to entail and they don't know what kind of support they might have. So I think Shawnetta was a really good example. I'm glad we had here today. You need to keep asking. To Nick's point, the technology has changed. So if you asked for something 4 years ago, the no might have been a legitimate no. And today it might be a legitimate yes. So ask again. If you're an Esri customer, contact your account manager. You know, you're not in this alone. There are people that can help you do this, like Bentley and Bad Elf. There are amazing people trailblazing like Shawnetta. I've sent many people to her, sorry to say that here, but she is very gracious with her time. You know, as you mentioned, we're all passionate about this. So I'm happy to have people reach out to me as well, and we can start talking about that. Change management is a huge part of digital transformation. And I mean, Shawnetta brought that up as like reimagine, stop thinking the way you're always thinking, be open to that. That's probably the hardest part. Like technology is not usually the issue. It's usually the people. Not that technology is perfect. I don't mean to say that, but think about how resilient you are and how ready you are to take a risk and go for it. Get started, and don't let perfection be, you know, the enemy of progress. Step by step. You're not going to have Shawnetta's system tomorrow.
So Shawnetta, you're going to get a flood. No pun.
I know. I'm sorry.
I hate to use that word, but I just pointed out you're probably overloaded. I think it just amped up a bit.
We're always open to sharing.
I love that. So I'm glad you brought up the workforce and digital transformation. There was a book that came out a number of years ago, The Technology Fallacy. And it talked about digital transformation and adoption and the value of digital beyond sort of the obvious and focusing on the human capital side of it. And it found that organizations, regardless of whether it was public or private sector, valued digital transformation because they were in a better position to attract talent and retain talent. And you're all nodding yes. So, I mean, it strikes me that that's the case in the private sector and the consulting world, that if you're not a digital entity, whether utility, government sector, or private sector, you're at a competitive disadvantage. And we've got one more minute because Simon needs to go. So I'm just going to say a couple of things and thank everybody. So first of all, thank you, everyone that attended, participated. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for the 4 of you. And again, I learned a lot. My closing thought is that digital is not optional, not anymore. I mean, you know, we saw digital transformation get some traction before the pandemic. It took off, at least in my view, like a hockey stick representation, and it's here to stay. So, you know, any notion that analog is good enough is really very short-sighted. And I believe that, yes, all the tools are here. Maybe things are not perfect, but increased connectivity is here, and it's increasing based on what I heard from everybody. So I think it's a matter of how do we quantify the value proposition in a really different and creative way, and get leadership to buy into it. So Simon, I think you can go. I nailed it at 11:30 Mountain Time. I want to thank everybody. Really love the conversation, and an honor to participate in this. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks, team.